Ever tripped over? Like nothing. You're just walking along and suddenly your ankle rolls.
Oh,
It's like the worst. And it got me thinking, what is even going on in there? And you know what? It is way more complicated than I ever imagined.
Oh, absolutely. It's kind of crazy how much we think our ankles behind it until
So this deep dive, we're getting into that
and the sources we've got for this one, top notch, super detailed, but easy to understand too.
Exactly. So let's start with the basics. The bones,
The foundation.
right? Got to have a good foundation. So obviously we've got the tibia and fibula down there. Those are the two long bones in your lower leg.
Right, those come down from the knee.
But then there's this other bone, the talus, that I don't think I even knew existed before reading about this. What's the deal with that?
The talus is key. It's the bone that actually connects your leg to your foot. It sits right between the tibia and fibula, sort of nestled in there. And it's got this unique shape, kind of a dome on top, and then it narrows down at the bottom. And that shape is what allows your ankle to move the way it does.
So that's why I can like point your toes and stuff.
Exactly. That dome-shaped top of the talus fits perfectly into a kind of socket formed by the tibia and fibula, and that lets it rock back and forth for plantar flexion, that's pointing your toes,
Oh.
and dorsiflexion, which is flexing your foot upwards.
Oh, right. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So the shape of that one bone is super important for everything.
It really is, and it has to be strong too, because all your weight goes through it when you walk, run, jump, everything.
No kidding.
Right.
Okay, so we've got the bones, but they're not just like floating around in there. What holds them together?
Ligaments.
Right, ligaments.
Yep.
I know I've heard of those, but what are they actually?
So ligaments are these tough, fibrous bands of tissue that connect bones to each other. Think of them like really strong rubber bands, or I don't know, maybe even like duct tape. They hold the bones together and keep them from moving too far out of alignment.
So they're what keep your ankle from like completely falling apart?
Pretty much. They're super important for stability. Now, there are a bunch of different ligaments in the ankle, but the sources highlight a couple of key ones. On the inside of your ankle, you have what's called the medial ligament, or sometimes it's called the deltoid ligament.
Okay.
It's a big, thick ligament that prevents your ankle from rolling inwards.
Oh, so that's what I hurt when I roll my ankle.
It could be. Now, on the outer side of your ankle, you have a group of ligaments called the lateral ligaments. They're kind of like guy wires on a tent pole. They keep your ankle from rolling outwards. And these are the ones that are most commonly injured in an ankle sprain.
That makes sense. So ligaments are all about keeping things stable.
Exactly.
But what about movement? How do we actually move our ankles?
That's where tendons come in.
Ah, tendons. Those are different from ligaments, right?
Right. Ligaments connect bone to bone, but tendons connect muscle to bone.
Okay.
And they're what transmit the force from your muscles to your bones, which is what actually makes your ankle move.
Okay.
And speaking of tendons, we got to talk about the big kahuna, the Achilles tendon.
The Achilles. Everybody's heard of that one. Why is it so famous?
Well, for one, it's the largest and strongest tendon in your entire body. It connects your calf muscles to your heel bone, and it's what allows you to do things like walk, run, jump, all those powerful movements.
Okay, so big and powerful. But the sources also mentioned that it could be prone to injury.
Yeah, unfortunately, especially in athletes who are putting a lot of stress on it. A ruptured Achilles tendon is a pretty serious injury.
Yikes. That doesn't sound fun. Are there any other tendons in the ankle we should know about?
Yeah, there are a couple of others that play important roles. There's the posterior tibial tendon, which runs along the inside of your ankle and helps support your arch. And then there are the peroneal tendons, which run along the outside of your ankle.
Okay.
They help stabilize the ankle and also help prevent ankle sprains, working in tandem with those lateral ligaments we talked about.
It's all about teamwork. So we've got bones, ligaments, tendons. What's left?
The muscles.
Of course, the muscles. Those are what actually make everything move, right?
Exactly. The muscles are the power source, and the tendons are the cables that transmit that power to the bones.
So are there a lot of muscles involved in ankle movement?
More than you might think. We can divide them into two main groups. The anterior group, which is at the front of your leg, and the posterior group, which is at the back.
Okay, so anterior and posterior, what do they do?
Well, the anterior group is responsible for dorsiflexion, remember. That's pulling your foot up towards your shin. One of the key muscles in this group is the tibialis anterior, which runs down the front of your shin.
Okay.
Think about walking uphill or climbing stairs. You need that dorsiflexion to lift your foot and clear the steps.
Makes sense. So what about the posterior group?
The posterior group is all about plantar flexion, pointing your toes, and the big player here is the gastrocnemius, which is your calf muscle.
Oh, everyone knows the calf muscle.
Exactly. It works with another muscle called the soleus, which is also in your calf, to give you that powerful push-off when you walk, run, or jump.
So anterior group lifts the foot, posterior group pushes off. Sounds like they have to work together pretty closely.
Absolutely. And if one group is weaker or tighter than the other, it can throw off that balance and lead to problems, not just in the ankle itself, but in the feet and even the knees.
Wow, it's all connected.
Yeah.
So we've got these muscle groups controlling up and down movement, but I remember the sources talking about how the ankle can move in other ways too, like side to side.
You got it. That's called inversion and eversion. Inversion is when you turn your foot inward, so the sole faces the other leg, and inversion is when you turn it outward. And these movements are really important for stability, especially when you're walking or running on uneven surfaces. Your ankle is constantly making tiny adjustments, using inversion and eversion to keep you balanced.
So basically, the ankle is way more complex than we give it credit for.
Yeah.
It's not just a simple hinge, it's this like multi-directional joint that's constantly working to keep us upright and moving. Now that you know all this, how do you think people should think about their ankles differently?
I think the biggest takeaway is just being aware of how much your ankles do for you every single day. We really do take them for granted. And if you ever have any ankle pain or problems, don't ignore it. Get it checked out.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And maybe look up a diagram online so you can really see what all these structures look like.
Exactly. It's pretty amazing how it all works together.
Totally agree.
You've been listening to the Learning Podcast, a production of Metanesta. Remember, learning is a journey. One step, one insight, one skill at a time. We'll see you next time. Keep learning, stay curious, and as always, be awesome.